Honored to present this year's commencement speaker, Jonathan O. Mays. Mr. Mays is a 1987 graduate of Willamette University College of Law. While at Willamette, he served as vice chairman of the Moot Court Board and was inducted into the Order of Barristers for his exemplary advocacy and leadership skills. Mr. Mays currently serves as Senior Vice President for External Affairs and Chief Diversity Officer for Albertsons Companies, one of America's largest grocery and pharmacy chains. As a member of the California Bar Association, he began his legal career at Donahue, Gallagher, Thomas & Woods before becoming senior counsel at Lucky Stores in 1991 and senior counsel at Safeway Incorporated in 1994. In 1996, Mr. Mays was named Safeway's Director of Government Relations. He was later promoted to Vice President and Group Vice President of Government Relations before being named Senior Vice President of Public Affairs, Government Relations, Sustainability, and Philanthropy in 2010. Safeway merged with Albertsons in 2015, and Mr. Mays continued in that role. In March 2017, he was named the company's Chief Diversity Officer. Mr. Mays is a certified diversity executive and a frequent speaker regarding diversity and inclusion. In addition to his impressive career, Mr. Mays has also served as committee chairman or board member for countless boards and professional organizations. He's a professional musician, arranger, and band leader, and plays piano, guitar, bass, and violin. Mr. Mays, in case you weren't intimidated enough already, he's also an accomplished endurance athlete, having participated in Ironman triathlons, ultramarathons, and over 70 marathons. Please help me welcome Jonathan Mays.
Dean, thank you very much for that kind introduction. President Thorson, great to see you. To the trustees and to the faculty, administration, and last but not least, family, and then to the graduates. It's a huge honor and pleasure for me to be here today. But to you, the graduates, I have a sense of how you feel. I sat where you sat 32 years ago. I know of the hard work, the sacrifice, the perseverance, the grit that got you to where you are today. And I congratulate you, and I wish you much success. One of my favorite books is the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the habits in there, if you know the book, is to start with the end in mind. So let me tell you what the end in mind is for me. Let me tell you why I'm here. My goal, from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head, from everything I have, is to be of help to you. To offer some suggestions that you can take with you, that are portable, that are applicable. That's my hope for you. And I want to do that by telling you 3 stories. The first story I call Hot Pants. My wife wasn't sure if you guys would know what that is, and so, okay, you do? All right, you're well read, obviously. Second story is called Oak Town. The third story is called Dollar Bill. Are you ready for this? Let's talk about hot pants. I don't believe any of us got to where we are on our own. I really don't believe that. And there's a person in my life I will never forget who was very instrumental, frankly, in my choice of career. When I was 14 years old, I had a teacher who taught public speaking in Santa Barbara, where I lived. And I remember 2 things about her very well. One was she was very much on the cutting edge of fashion, keeping up with the latest trends. And back in that day, one of the trends was hot pants. But we thought surely our high school teacher would never even think about, oh yes she did. One day that is etched forever in my memory. 14-year-old boy, in walks Mrs. Lepke wearing imitation fur, leopard skin, hot pants. Kid you not, as God is my witness, with a matching jacket and brown leather boots that came up to like here. I only saw her wear that once. I'm guessing the brass said, don't do that again. The second thing about Ms. Lepke, and clearly the most important, is that she loved her students. She wanted nothing more than for them to be the very best they could possibly be. She taught public speaking, and she would take some of her top students and enter them into public speaking competitions. And I was very fortunate to be in that group. One day after a competition I just finished, I was introduced to her boyfriend. And he walked up to me and he said, "Your teacher has told me about you. You did very well in that competition. You thought quickly on your feet. You organized your arguments really clearly. Have you ever thought about being a lawyer?" I said, "No." He said, "You should consider that, as a matter of fact, a litigation lawyer, a litigator. I think you would be good at that." And I said, "Do you mean it? Do you really think so?" He said, "Absolutely." And then he began to tell me what classes I should take in high school, what my major should be in college. He gave me his number and he said, "Call me anytime, because I want to be of assistance to you." My point number one is to you. You are people of influence, and that will only grow in the months and years to come. And I say it to you, and I say it to all of you. Find time to spend time with a youngster and help this person see beyond their horizon. I believe words matter. Those words really shaped my life. Words work in two directions, though. Words can also tear down. You learned in evidence class, you cannot unring the bell. Words once spoken are out there. So I really want to encourage you to use your words carefully, but even more so to use time, at least once a year, to find someone to come alongside and say, "I believe in you. You can do greater things than you might be able to imagine at this time." Hot pants. Oaktown. How many of you, by a show of hands, during your time in law school, had a clerkship? How many of you clerked out of town, out of Salem? Let me tell you a story about my clerkship after the second year of law school. When I was in law school, my wife and I decided that I was going to live in San Francisco. Because I told her if she would put up with 3 years of law school, we'd move anywhere she wanted to go. And she said, "I want to move to the Bay Area." And so I was fortunate to get a clerkship after my second year of law school at a law firm in Oakland. I needed a place to stay for the summer, of course. And so I talked with some people who knew someone who had a house in Oakland. And so this was long before the day of Airbnb. So I talked to her on the phone a couple of times. And I will never forget the last conversation I had with her. She said, "Jonathan, you seem like such a nice young man. I really look forward to your staying with me this summer." And I said, "Thank you very much. I look forward to that as well." So one Sunday morning, really early, I drove from Salem down to Oakland. I arrived at her house. I rang the doorbell. The door opened. And off to the side, sitting at the table, was the woman who owned the house. Never in my life have I seen a person's smile turn upside down into a frown faster than that day. I was shown to my room. Woke up the next morning. I'm all excited because this is my first day at the new firm. A firm where I hope to work someday and a firm where I ended up working. I come up the stairs and she is sitting on the sofa, wearing a robe. And I said, "Good morning." And she looked at me and she said, "It is not a good morning." And I said, "I'm sorry, is everything okay?" And she said, "No, everything is not okay." I said, "Well, what's wrong?" And she said, "You should have told me." And I said, "Told you what?" She said, "That you're black." I said, "I didn't know that mattered. Does it matter?" She said, "Well, yes, it matters." And I said, "Please tell me why." And she said, my neighbors are going to think you're a burglar. So you can't stay here." And so I smiled and said, "Ma'am, with all due respect, when I leave here in the morning, I'm going to be dressed as I was that day. A coat, a tie, a briefcase. When I come home during the week, I'm going to be dressed the same way. I really don't think they're going to think I'm a burglar. How about if I go talk with them when I get home from work? We can go talk and I can explain I'm a student at Willamette University, College of Law." She said, No. I said, "Well, ma'am, what are we going to do here?" She said, "You can't stay here." I said, "Well, can I at least stay one night?" She said, "You can stay one night, but you're out of here." You can imagine the fog that I was in as I drove from her house to the law firm that day. To this day, I'm not exactly sure how I got there because I was scared. I didn't have an American Express Platinum card. I didn't have the resources to stay in a hotel or even, frankly, first and last month's rent. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was scared. So I got to the firm, and they took me to a really fancy restaurant at lunch, a couple of the partners. And they said, "So, Jonathan, how are things going so far?" And I said, well, I told them what happened. One of the partners looked me in the eye and said, "Jonathan, do you want to sue her?" Seriously. I didn't say this out loud, but in my heart I said, "I love you, man." In my heart, I couldn't believe he said that, but he meant that. And I said, "I really appreciate that, but what I really need to do is to figure out where I'm going to live." I had called my dad earlier that morning, and my dad was so funny. I explained what was going on. I couldn't ask my dad for money. He didn't have it. He said, my dad's so funny. He said, "Son, I know somebody who might know somebody who might know somebody. I'll try that." How many of you are in relationships or married? I'm just curious, if you don't mind my asking. You don't normally get this at a commencement address, but this is kind of a bonus feature. I'm going to give you some marital advice. May I do that? Or at least some partnership advice? May I do that? It's free? Okay. I have a policy. I've been married almost 37 years. It'll be 37 years in July. I have a policy. Thank you. Thank you. My policy is I never, ever lie to my wife. To the best of my knowledge, as I stand here today, I've never lied. But as a Willamette-trained law grad, from time to time I might strategically omit a few details. I was hoping she wouldn't call me until I could figure out where I was going to live because I knew it would break her heart. But she called me, and I had to tell her. And I heard a sound on the other end I'd never heard before, on the other end of the line. My wife is tough as nails. I had never, ever, ever heard the sound. But it was the sound of my wife crying. And it broke my heart. And I'm at work, my first day at the law firm, And I started to cry. I'm in my office, first day of the law firm, and I'm in tears because of what happened. I told this story to a friend recently, and she said, and she's known me for decades, she said, Jonathan, you're a really good guy. What really hurts is that she never gave you a chance. But here's my second point. Give people a chance. Don't prejudge. Most of this occurs at the subconscious level. We're not even aware of it. I'm going to encourage you and all of you, as you look at who you hire, who you promote, give people a chance. There's a business case for that as well. It's been shown that companies that embrace diversity and inclusion tend to outperform those that do not. So be a part of that. Don't prejudge. Give people a chance. Here's my last. Here's my last point. You may be wondering, how did the story end? How did I find a place to live? Well, my dad, sure enough, knew someone who had a daughter who lived in Oakland. And I called her, and I explained what happened. And she said, oh yes, you can stay here. I've never had the chance to really publicly thank her for helping someone who was in a really tight situation those years ago. But this person moved from Oakland and now lives in the Portland area. And she's here today. And her name is Rita Brown, and she's in the back. And would you join me in publicly thanking her? My wife and I visited with her last year, and she told me something I never knew. She said, Jonathan, when I talked to you on the phone, I thought you were white. True story. True story. But she said, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. Last point. Graduates, under your chair, I think you will find an envelope. I'm going to ask you to grab it now. Under your chair, there should be an envelope. And when you grab it, I'm going to ask you to open it. What you will find in that envelope is a dollar bill, the first income you will have received as college graduates, hopefully. I'm pleased to give it to you. It's from my wife and I, personally, to you. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. You can't keep it. Nor can you give it to someone you know. The third point is, it's a symbol of what I want you to do as professionals, as people who walk this earth. Think about the example of my friend Rita Brown. Give of your resources. Many of you are going to make incomes that you can't even conceive of now. Give of your resources. Give back. Not only your money, but your time. But your time. Not unto ourselves alone are we born is our motto. I encourage you to live that out every day. So in summary, words matter. For good, for ill. I encourage you to use them wisely. Second, treat everyone fairly, like you yourself would like to be treated if you were in that circumstance. And third, let's be a people who give back of our time, of our resources, of our talents. I wish you nothing but great success in the years to come. It's been my great privilege to spend a little bit of time with all of you. And I wish you nothing but the best. Go and do great things.